Questions for Steve after that? If you don't have questions after that, you're not paying attention. In the back, sir.
Thanks, that was a great talk. Just with respect to your last point, you're asking whether it's easy enough, whether it's meaningful enough. My question would be slightly different. Is what's the incentives for people to join in and communicate? We heard about playing games and talking to your friends and so on. Yeah. And one of the problems I mentioned earlier on was the difficulty of creating networks of people who go on interacting with each other indefinitely. And that's not so much about it not being difficult, but there has to be some real positive incentive, some real need, some real service that is being provided as a result of that. So I might be, just listening to what you say, I might be inclined to rephrase one or two of the questions at the end. But thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely very challenging. It's often, especially within the world of communities of practice and knowledge management, it's often one or two people or organizations who want to create a community of practice, which is obviously very different from a community of practice emerging of itself. And so for us who want to create these things, we really need to think about what drives those people and what makes them tick. And it's a very good point. And I enjoyed Dr. Salvador's presentation of thinking about it's a system, and it's a complex adaptive system. And so what do we introduce that people will resist? And what are the social structures and the power structures? And how can you influence that group in a way that begins to make people want to participate? It's difficult. Yeah.
Got a question down in front. Yes.
Eric Hirschman from Ushahidi. So my question is on tools. Do you think it's possible to introduce tools from an aid or development standpoint, or is it something that people use because it's already in their pocket, so it's usually a consumer tool anyway?
Yeah. I think both, for sure. If what you're offering is addressing their need, then the means that it gets achieved, I don't think that people focus on that too much. Obviously, it makes a lot more sense to work with what people have got already. And I work in education in South Africa, and so we build computer labs. Well, the education department does. Kids can only access that lab for 30 minutes a week. But most of those kids have got cell phones, so we've actually got no choice but to look at that. But at the same time, if you introduce an intervention that addresses that need, yeah.
So do you use Mixit, or do you use a new tool?
I use Mixit. Yeah. So Mixit's the mobile instant messaging service that little conversation on the maths tutoring, Dr. Maths on Mixit is all about. And that has a membership of 10 million. So a few million of those are in the 12 to 18 age group. And I've been talking to them about saying, well, let's look at cell phones as tools to develop literacy and language skills. And let's try and move past how texting degrades language. And obviously explore that and really kind of have a serious dialogue about that. But to look at a phone as a publishing platform. So to get Macbeth in short story form sent down to you. And to allow kids to write pieces and share them and review each other and get that kind of hands-on participation. Yeah.
Can we get a microphone? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Here in the back.
What I noticed was you were, it's Paul Stevers, Charity Help International. And what I noticed was that you were looking at really just your basic phones that do basic text. But my observation is that the smartphones are coming through in a big way. And in a few years, you're going to see the average kid having a smartphone, with that kind of capability. It might not be an iPhone, but it'll be something that can do much more than just texting.
Sure. Absolutely. And in South Africa, as an example, typically what happens is that wealthier people buy a new phone. The bulk of the population is on pay-as-you-go. And they typically get phones that people hand down to them. So as technology advances, the hand-me-down phone now is actually fairly sophisticated. and the hand-me-down phone in 3 years' time will be a smartphone. So it's just a matter of, it's a waiting game. But for example, this Mixit application, that's a Java app. So that runs on GPRS. So we know that there are at least 10 million Java WAP-enabled phones in South Africa, which people often don't realize that. And it's true. A lot of the innovation, obviously, is as soon as that technology becomes mainstream, there's going to be huge opportunities.
Other questions, comments? Oh, sorry, yes, sir. One more.
Yes, Henri de Cazotte from the French Development Agency. It's a bit of the same question that this morning. Our institutions work mainly on the web. I mean, we've been fighting inside our institutions to develop web platforms, and we are still fighting against the people who produce paper. Yeah. And so when you were talking to moving to the mobile, I wonder, what should we do? Should we scrap the web? Yeah. And delete what we've been doing, fighting against the whole system to get the web as a development tool, and then go into the mobile? Oh, and then my question is it a kind of downgrading of what we've been doing on the web? Even on the web, people are discussing the quality of what we are doing. They say that it's not scientific, that things are not as true as what is being written on the paper. So on the mobile, I mean, things will be reduced to very simple things, and not have the quality of content, the scientific content of what we should be putting on the technology. So I am a bit uncertain of where we should be going. For instance, did you scrap the Cape platform? No. This had been thrown away by the South African government as being unsuitable, not informative, or outdated as soon as it was published. Yeah. So I'm not quite sure what you are trying to say. Is that what should we be doing? Is it a new industry that we have to build maybe and develop? Thank you.
Okay. That's a great question. Thank you. So absolutely not. The web is here to stay. So the web is the glue that holds the whole thing together, and the web will always be here. And people speak about a PC-based web and a mobile web. There is only one web, but there are different ways to access it. And we have to realize that the 4 billion people out there who increasingly, as their phones become not even smartphones, just fairly basic phones that can do web access, they have a reduced view into our web, or into the web. So the web is still the corner piece. We have to begin to realize that we need to allow people to look into it, and we need to customize our information, and in a way that is mobile friendly, which is very important. And there's a lot of work being done for that. But absolutely, the web is here to stay, and it complements. The cell phones complement a kind of full web experience. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we'll have more conversation in a moment. I want to